Thank you. So about 5 years ago, I became a scout leader. My son wanted to join scouts, excuse me, and the local troop didn't have enough space for more kids unless they could get more leaders. And I actually really like camping. That's the thing that I like to do. So it seemed perfect for me. But very quickly, I realized a bunch of things. For one, when you tell somebody that you are a scout leader, that is the best way to make them wonder if you're a pedophile. More importantly, though, I realized that scouting is actually not about camping. It's the format that you work in. It's sort of the medium. But it's really about taking young people and teaching them how to think for themselves, how to do things for themselves, to be prepared, to solve problems, and to work together as a team, but also to treat other people with respect, to be good people, to be kind and treat people with dignity, basically to be good citizens. And that made me realize something about myself, because I wasn't that person. I wasn't a bad person, but growing up, I wouldn't call myself a delinquent, but I wasn't really good either. I never went to class at all. I almost got kicked out of high school for making a master key to the building, and did actually get kicked out of high school for impersonating our vice president of student council in an assembly while hanging from a noose. He didn't see the humor in the situation, and I honestly don't blame him because it was mean. But it wasn't intended to be mean. My problem was that I didn't think about other people. I didn't think about my actions, about how they affected other people. I was very self-absorbed that way. And suddenly I'm in the situation where I have to teach kids to not be like that. And I had no idea what to do. So I did what I knew. I taught them camping, how to tie knots, how to use a map and compass, how to build fires, how to use a knife properly and safely, the things that I understood and that I was really comfortable with. And over time, the other aspects kind of took care of themselves. And eventually, we were doing activities that I hadn't considered before, like collecting food for a local food bank, or delivering care packages or Christmas hampers to people who were less fortunate than us. And I'd never thought about doing anything like that. And it really surprised me how much pleasure I got from it. Doing something that really didn't affect my life personally made me feel really, really good. And it seemed to have the same effect on the kids. There was two leaders that had a big effect on me when I was there. One was Hawkeye. That was her scout name. My scout name was Moose. And Hawkeye was a mother. She had two kids that were in the troop, and she dealt with the young kids, like the 6-year-olds. And we got along great because we had skills that complemented each other. I work in film, and I'm really busy, and I don't have a lot of time. And she's a housewife, and she had a lot more time, and she could organize things really well that I didn't have time for. So when we would go on trips, she would get things prepared, and then when we would get out into the bush, I could teach the kids how to set up a tarp over their kitchen section, things that they needed to do, paddle a canoe, all the sort of practical hands-on skills that I had. And we worked really, really well together, and we became really, really good friends. There was another leader, Badger. Badger was in charge of the entire group. Badger had been around for a long time, no longer had kids in the troop. Her kids had grown up by this point, but she loved scouting, so she stayed on. She had a very particular way of doing things, though, her way, the way that it kind of had always been done, which for the most part was great because she understood the program really, really well. But if there was an issue, if somebody was uncomfortable with something and they raised that, she didn't handle it well. And she was demeaning and insulting and kind of a bully. This wasn't a problem for me. Like I said, I work in film and I've dealt with a lot of directors. And often they act that way themselves. And so I kind of learned to just whatever, I'll just get the job done. But the other leaders and the parents in particular, they didn't have that same comfort with it. And I became the person that everyone went to when they had a problem with Badger. So when we were taking the 6-year-olds out, say in early May on a trip, and it was raining nonstop and really, really cold, and Badger had decided that the kids were supposed to eat outside under the pavilion and not in the heated cabin where she was making the food, the parents came up to me and they were like, "You're not going to do this, right?" And I'd say, no, don't worry. And I'd go to Badger and say, this isn't going to happen because they're going to take these kids and go home, and there'd be a big fight, and she'd be like, well, no, you just don't understand. I'm like, no, I understand. I understand better than you do. We're going to lose these families. The kids ate inside. And we only lost one family that trip. But that became a pattern, and it started happening more and more. And good people, really cool families that I was getting to know and getting to like, they were going away. And it bothered me, not because I was losing people that I liked, but because these kids were missing out on a really good opportunity that they enjoyed because grown-ups were insisting on acting like children. And it was wrong. And after about 4 years, Hawkeye came up to me and she said, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. Every week was a fight. Every week she would come in with things that she wanted to get done, and she would have to argue for an hour just for acceptance. And she said, I can't do this anymore. And she left, and she took her kids. And I don't blame her. I gave her a great big hug, and I wished her well, and I told her that we would always be friends. And I said goodbye. And as I left, as I was walking home, I knew that my decision was made also. Because I just couldn't do it without her help. I didn't have the time, and she was a powerhouse at getting things done. And I got home, and I sat down in front of my computer, and I wrote this email very carefully that I sent out to everyone, all of the parents, all of the leaders. I didn't want to, separate things to these people. I just wanted everyone to know how I felt. And I was polite. I didn't point fingers. I didn't, start a pissing fight or anything like that. I just said, the situation that I've been trying to deal with, I can't work with it anymore. It was worded so that people could say, oh yeah, he's really busy with work. He doesn't have time anymore. But I didn't lie. I said, I can't do this anymore. I have to quit. And I said, I want to thank you for this opportunity. It's been important to me. It's changed me. And your kids are wonderful people. And they deserve the best. And I wish I had the time to give that to them. And then I sat there after sending that email, and I felt broken, like empty. And then about 10 minutes after I sent the email, I started getting responses from the parents. I never got a response from Badger to this day. And they all said basically the same thing. They said, we want to thank you. You've done a wonderful job. You've been a special person to our kids, and they see you as a role model, and we want to thank you for that. And they said that they understood what my problem was, and they didn't blame me. Some of them even said they were surprised I lasted as long as I had. And it was weird because it made me feel better, but it also made me feel worse at the same time because it was just wrong. It wasn't how things were supposed to end. And it was kind of like a really bad breakup because for a while I just didn't know how to feel. And one day I was walking down the street in my neighborhood, and I heard this voice yell out, "Hey, Moose!" And I turned around, and it's this kid from my troop and his mom, and they're standing on the corner, and they're smiling, and I went over, and I just started talking. We just had a great conversation. I asked him how things were going, and he was having a great time. And eventually I said, "Hey, how's the troop?" The problem is he had left. Apparently all but 3 of the kids had left. They, after a very short time, had realized they didn't like being there anymore. They weren't being given the opportunity to learn things for themselves, to learn how to do things. They were being told how to do things, and they were being told how to remember to do what they were told. And they realized that they didn't have the same thing that they had before, and they all decided to leave. And I felt really proud of myself because I had taught these kids to think for themselves, and they had taught me to think of other people. And it kind of gave me peace. There's one other thing that I've realized in that time, sorry. When you tell people that you used to be a scout leader, that's what makes them think that you're a pedophile. Thank you. I'm Zebulon Pike.